I'm divorcing you. I've been tolerating you just for the money, but now that you're retired, you're not even useful as an ATM anymore. Haha. I'm taking all the retirement money for myself to live with our daughter. Exactly. Mom has been putting up with you all this time. A man without earnings is useless. Leave the retirement money and disappear. Haha. Both my wife and daughter looked at me with disdain, as if I were something filthy. Understood. I quietly nodded in agreement. None of us there could have imagined what would happen next. Going back over 50 years ago, I, Thomas, was raised in a single-parent household. My father passed away in an accident when I was young, and my mother raised me all by herself. Despite working hard, my mother's earnings were modest, and our home was always poor. Yet, she was kind and always thoughtful, filling me with love. Even in poverty, I felt happy. As a child, I was relatively quiet. I was good at studying but not at sports, so I never played soccer or baseball with friends outside. My mother had a period when she was a painter and ran an art class, which influenced me to love drawing the most. I learned to paint from her and became immersed in it, drawing every day. Even without toys or picture books at home, I found joy in drawing. I truly loved painting and wanted to study it more seriously, but I kept these feelings hidden, saying to myself, painting is just a hobby. My mother often encouraged me to study in high school and eventually go to college, but I wanted to ease her burden. So I started working right after graduating from middle school. I got a job at a local manufacturer. Luckily, my potential was recognized and I secured employment. Being a middle school graduate, I was the youngest there, and initially, learning the ropes was tough. However, perhaps because I was good at studying, I quickly got the hang of things and became proficient at my job. Simultaneously, as the company's performance grew, it became a famous corporation. Before I knew it, my salary had significantly increased. 10 years later, I was earning much more than my peers from middle school. Suddenly, I found myself in my late 20s, now a mid-level employee at the company. It was about time to consider marriage. My mother started asking if I had someone in my life or when I would get married. Although I had dated a few women, I wasn't yet thinking about marriage. Then, a colleague, Kevin, invited me to a group date. There were 4 women and 4 men. The men were just acquaintances, friends of friends. All 4 women were genuinely beautiful, and I was secretly thrilled. However, not being good at conversing and having limited dating experience, I couldn't initiate conversations or approach anyone in particular. Amidst this, one woman showed interest in me. That was Emily, who later became my wife. "What do you do for a living, Thomas?" Emily had fluffy long hair, fair skin, and was more cute than beautiful. Her big eyes sparkled as she smiled and spoke to me, making my heart race. "Oh, I work with Kevin at XX company." "Well, that's impressive. Working at such a big company." She seemed genuinely interested in my job and kept asking more questions. "Well, when I joined, it wasn't that big, but working there since then is amazing. Is your job tough?" "I guess I'm used to it, and I can leave on time some days, so I think I have quite a bit of free time." "Oh, then you can find time for hobbies or go on dates," Emily said with a chuckle. "If you have time, maybe we could have dinner together sometime," Emily suggested. It seemed like Emily had taken a liking to me. Though it was a 4-to-4 group date, it already felt like 4 pairs of 1-to-1. I spent the entire time talking with Emily, and before I knew it, quite some time had passed. That day, Emily and I exchanged contact information. After that, the group date came to an end. Following that, I took Emily out for dinner several times, just as we had promised. Every time, she wore cute clothes, approached me with her fluffy long hair and big eyes, smiling and talking to me, and I found myself falling more and more for her. Love is indeed blind. I was just happy that such a cute woman was spending time with me. After a while of dating, I proposed to Emily. Her answer was a yes. Things moved quickly, and we got married. A year later, our daughter, Lily, was born. Lily looked just like Emily. When our daughter was born, Emily quit her job to become a full-time homemaker. I agreed with Emily's desire to raise our daughter ourselves rather than sending her to daycare. I thought our happy family life would continue forever. Then, about 10 years later, I suddenly faced a layoff. The company, which had been on an upward trajectory, began to struggle and fell into poor performance after the president changed. The new president, Mr. Smith, was very much focused on educational background, and with the recent poor performance, he conducted a thorough review. People without a higher education were being fired left and right. I was one of them. This was when my life began to fall apart. The day I was laid off, I wondered how to break the news to my family as I headed home. Still, I felt determined to work hard again for my kind wife and adorable daughter. I'm home. Welcome back. I made your favorite dish tonight, mac and cheese. My wife greeted me as warmly as usual. Hi, Daddy. I'm hungry. Let's eat quickly. Lily greeted me with her cute smile. Mac and cheese, huh, that's great. Lily's hungry too, and I'm starving as well. I never imagined that this normal day would be the end of it all. After finishing dinner, I broached the topic. Emily, I need to talk to you about something today. What is it? Maybe it's better to talk after Lily has gone to bed. Well, Lily's about to take a bath now, so it's fine. I have a drama I want to watch later, so please tell me now. Okay. Actually, I got fired from the company today. What? You're joking, right? At that moment, my wife's face contorted. I'm planning to look for another job right away, but until I find one, we'll have to rely on my severance pay. I'll receive a decent amount, so we should be okay for a while. I spoke to my wife with a feeling of apology. Then she let out a deep sigh, and she held her head in her hands. I couldn't see her expression from where I was. I can't believe it. Laid off. I'm sorry. It was sudden. With the change in presidency, many people are being let go. I'll find another job soon. Then my wife glared at me sharply. Her face was like that of a different person from before. As a husband, as a father, you're a failure. Getting laid off is unacceptable. What have you been doing all this time? I'm sorry. I felt terribly sorry for making my wife anxious. Her attitude towards me changed dramatically. Sorry isn't enough. Do you know why I got married with you? Working at that company, earning a good salary was the whole point. I thought I had secured a winning spot in life. What a mistake to marry someone like you. I'm disappointed. How can you not be embarrassed to be among those laid off? That's right. You only finished middle school, didn't you? Now it makes sense. It was already incredible that you managed to work at that company with just a middle school education. I had my doubts before we married, and it turns out I was right. I wonder why I didn't call it off back then. As soon as I heard the words "it's meaningless," I was struck with shock. I couldn't think of anything other than the fact that my wife had been seeing me in such a light all this time. I'm tired of talking to you, actually. I don't want to talk to you ever again. This is so upsetting. At that moment, our daughter Lily came out of the bath. I'm done with my bath. What's going on? Sensing the tense atmosphere, Lily looked puzzled. Then my wife spoke up. Daddy got fired from his job. I was shocked to hear my wife tell our daughter this way. Lily, in turn, looked flustered, glancing back and forth between me and my wife. What does that mean? I'm still in high school. What about my tuition? What are we going to do? I was thrown off by my daughter's words. My wife responded to her. For now, we have the severance pay, so we should be okay. But if he doesn't find a job soon, you might not be able to go to college. Wait a minute. This is unbelievable. I'll take care of Lily's tuition, and I promise to find a new job soon. Lily glared at me. Then my wife also glared at me. You better find a job quickly. It's unacceptable if I can't go to college because of you. Lily, there's no point in talking about it now. If your dad doesn't find a new job, we'll even struggle with everyday living. For now, we're relying on the severance pay. Lily sighed deeply. Her expression was a mirror image of my wife's. Are you even a father? Being unemployed is just unbelievable. How could you get laid off? My husband here got fired because he's just a middle school graduate. A man without a degree is not needed at the company, I suppose. Lily, make sure you don't marry someone foolish like him. I'm so tired of this. I don't want to be in the same place as him anymore. I'm going to bed. Dad, you only graduated from middle school. That's so stupid. I don't want to breathe the same air as you. Saying this, both my wife and daughter went up to their rooms. I stood there, stunned, as if I had been punched. I couldn't even begin to feel sadness or anger. Have I really done something so terrible? What were all those years with my wife and daughter about? These were the thoughts that haunted me. And from that day on, the attitudes of my wife and daughter changed completely. The next morning, the breakfast that used to be prepared was no longer there. Dinner was prepared, but my wife and daughter had already eaten by the time I got home, so I ate alone. Soon, my shirts were no longer ironed for me. Eventually, my laundry was separated from my wife and daughter's. And since they didn't want to touch my clothes, I started doing my own laundry. Then, because I wasn't earning money, I no longer received an allowance. I was told not to speak, and our conversations ceased completely. Eventually, I was even forbidden from entering the living room when my wife and daughter were there. I lost any sense of what my role or purpose was in my family. A month after being laid off, I found a new job. My previous job title proved to be beneficial, and I was able to secure employment at a company with solid terms. However, it wasn't as large a corporation as the one I had previously worked for, so my salary decreased. Even when I reported my reemployment, upon hearing about the salary, my wife looked displeased and told our daughter, "He's found a new job, but it's with a lower-level company compared to before, so we can't live the way we used to." Lily, too, had a look of dissatisfaction on her face. As my wife pointed out, our standard of living had to be lowered due to the decrease in my income. Previously, we would go on a family vacation abroad once a year and often dined out. My wife, who enjoyed shopping, frequently went out with Lily to buy clothes, shoes, and bags. Now, family vacations and dining out had become things of the past. My wife and daughter would still go out for meals and shopping together, but they no longer came back with as many purchases as before. Even after I got reemployed, I was ignored by both my wife and daughter, living in the same house but as if we were separated within the home. When Lily entered college, their treatment toward me became even harsher. Lines were drawn in the house, and I was told not to enter the territories of my wife and daughter. I had to live as inconspicuously as possible to avoid their notice. If they did notice me, they would say terrible things. For instance, "You stink," "You're dirty," and those were the milder comments. My wife berated me with, "I shouldn't have married a middle school graduate. Give me back my life." My daughter called me the one who made mom unhappy, trash that's no longer needed by the company. Over time, the situation at home not only failed to improve, but actually escalated. The mental strain became unbearable, and I started to consider divorce. I consulted a lawyer, but without solid evidence, it was difficult to substantiate the claims. Furthermore, since my wife did not work part-time and did the bare minimum household chores as a homemaker, minor verbal abuse was deemed insufficient grounds for divorce. Therefore, I couldn't bring myself to initiate the divorce. After enduring for 5 years, a marriage proposal came up for my daughter. Apparently, she was approached by a man somewhere. This man was reportedly the successor to a company president, essentially a wealthy heir. I had never heard of that company. Indeed, my daughter, resembling her mother in her youth, was pretty and beautiful, so it made sense that she was approached. She proudly told me about it. She said, "Unlike you, I'm marrying someone who's an elite, a graduate from a good university, and earns more than 10 times what you do." All I could respond with was, "I see." I kept thinking that maybe this would change my current life. Soon after, I reached my retirement age. I received a decent amount of retirement pay. Lily's marriage and my retirement seemed to be turning points in my current situation. On the day I retired, my wife and daughter were waiting for me at home. The first thing I was told when I arrived home was just one sentence: "We're getting a divorce." I hesitated to immediately agree, fearing that if I appeared too eager, it might be taken the wrong way, potentially leading to more hurtful remarks. As I remained silent, they kept on talking. "We're divorcing you. I've been tolerating you just for the money, but now that you're retired, you're not even useful as an ATM anymore. Haha. I'm taking all the retirement money for myself to live with our daughter." I remained quiet. Then Lily spoke up. "That's right. Mom has been putting up with you all this time. A man without earnings is useless. Leave the retirement money and disappear. Haha." Both my wife and daughter looked at me as if I were something filthy. Understood. I quietly nodded in agreement. Despite the harsh words, inside I was relieved. I had been longing to be free from this life. But I kept that to myself. I was willing to give up all the retirement money just to live separately from my wife and daughter. I had saved a small amount of money, though not much, and planned to live alone in a small apartment. I also had things I wanted to do after retirement. Sometime after the divorce, I unexpectedly received a call from my ex-wife. I debated whether to answer, but considering she called, I thought something must have happened, so I decided to pick up. "Hello. It's you. I have something I need to talk about." "What is it? Can we start over again?" I was surprised. She was asking to reconcile. As I remained silent, my ex-wife began to speak as if a floodgate had opened. "Lily might be getting a divorce. You know, she was supposed to get married around the time you retired. But now, things are complicated. I was planning to move in with Lily, but that's not going to happen now, and the retirement money is gone due to some issues. So Lily is struggling." My ex-wife had been planning to rely on Lily's would-be husband, but with the impending divorce, she had nowhere to go. She continued, "Hey, you're doing well now, right? As the former head of the family and her father, shouldn't you take care of her if she's going through a tough time after her divorce?" She spoke as if it were a matter of course. My ex-wife had heard about my current situation from Kevin, a former colleague at my previous company. I had also heard about this encounter from Kevin. He had run into my ex-wife while out to dinner with his wife. At that time, my ex-wife was boasting about how she did me a favor by divorcing me and that her daughter was about to marry a wealthy heir. Kevin heard this and inadvertently mentioned, "That's good to hear. He's doing great now," referring to me. Kevin, irritated by how happily my ex-wife talked about the divorce and demeaned me, ended up sharing my current situation with her, almost as if to show me official. In reality, I am now highly successful as a painter. Throughout my time as a corporate employee, I secretly attended a free local art class without my wife and daughter's knowledge. During tough times, this art class was a source of solace for me. After the divorce was finalized, I had hoped to dedicate more time to painting freely. Once the divorce was settled, a painting of mine happened to catch the eye of the well-known President Johnson. Subsequently, my paintings and name began to spread on social media and quickly became a topic of conversation. My artwork started to be traded for prices ranging from several hundred to millions of dollars, earning me far more than I ever did as a corporate employee. My ex-wife, having learned about my current success from Kevin, called me. "Are you listening?" she asked. "I am, but Lily's divorce is her issue, and her divorce doesn't mean I have to take care of you," I replied. There was a moment of silence. I had no intention of reconciling. My ex-wife, now infuriated, began to rant. "Aren't you even a father? Your daughter is facing difficulties. I endured a miserable marriage because of you. Now, Lily's husband's company is on the brink of bankruptcy. The retirement money you gave us went all into saving his business. Their marriage isn't going well, and she's thinking about divorce. Lily and I are almost homeless," she exclaimed. My ex-wife was raising her voice on the phone. But whatever she said, it didn't resonate with me. I had been the one enduring all this time. Ever since the layoff, I had not been treated as part of the family at home. I had effaced my existence, working tirelessly only to be met with constant verbal abuse. That hellish life had become a trauma. The thought of never having to see my wife and daughter again was even a relief. The idea of reconciliation was unimaginable. "Whatever you say, I have no intention of reconciling. I gave you all the retirement money, and you agreed to the divorce. You were the one who wanted it. I have no desire to return to that hellish life. That's because of your layoff. If you had been earning more, none of this would have happened," she retorted. "I won't reconcile. That's my final answer. Sorry, but I'm going to hang up now." She was still saying something on the other end of the phone, but I hung up. I believe the trouble with my daughter's husband's company, the disappearance of the retirement money, and their divorce are all consequences of their own actions. Having been unable to find peace even at home until now, I want to live freely from here on out. Indulging in my passion for painting and taking my time to enjoy it is now my greatest source of happiness. Additionally, I've recently become close with a woman of my age who also attends the same art class. She's been alone for a long time, having lost her husband. The paintings created by this woman are gentle and soothing to me. Spending time with her, drawing together, going for walks, having tea, and chatting brings me happiness. I want to cherish each of these moments of happiness and live out the rest of my life in this way. I have memories that I can't forget no matter how hard I try, or rather, memories I don't want to forget. Looking back, it seems like a dream, but it was undoubtedly real. I had a wife whom I married when I was 25. I got a job at a male-dominated IT company right after graduation, and a friend introduced me to her, as I had no opportunities to meet someone. Her name was Emily. Emily, with her kind and encompassing nature, and I, impulsive and reckless, were complete opposites, which is probably why we were drawn to each other. After dating for 2 years, I proposed, and we got married. Emily worked at a pet store with a shifting schedule, which didn't align well with my weekends off, but we managed to share household chores and initially got along well. However, after about 3 years, our relationship gradually deteriorated. As I progressed into my late 20s and gained more experience, I was increasingly entrusted with more responsible tasks at work. This was something I was very happy about, but I believe it also put a significant amount of stress on me, both mentally and physically. From the onset of our marriage, Emily was in charge of preparing meals and cleaning areas like the kitchen, living room, hallway, and entrance. I was responsible for cleaning the areas outside of the kitchen, including the bathroom. We would also take care of other chores as needed or whoever noticed them first. Of course, there were days when we were unable to complete our tasks, and we were flexible about it. But during this time, I found myself increasingly unable to keep up with my share of the chores. Then, one day, when I returned from work on the last train, Emily had just gotten home and spread some ready-made dishes on the table. "Is this dinner for tonight?" I asked, and Emily, looking apologetic, replied, "Yeah, sorry, I was tired and it got late today, so I bought these from the supermarket." She then heated my portion in the microwave, transferred it to a plate, and handed it to me. I had already eaten ready meals for lunch and was hoping for a proper meal at night. Lost in these thoughts, I wasn't paying attention to what Emily was saying. Then I interrupted her. "Could you run the bath?" Emily looked surprised and momentarily frozen. It was my task to run the bath, so her reaction was understandable. That's what I thought at the time. "I'm tired from working consecutive days. Could you do it for me?" Upon hearing this, Emily said okay and went to run the bath. This kind of situation continued day after day. I didn't know much about the busy season at the pet shop, but Emily seemed to be working harder than ever before, often getting home late and unable to prepare proper dinners. After about 2 weeks of this, I finally spoke up. "Lately, you've been slacking off a bit, haven't you?" That day, I got home around 10 p.m., earlier than usual, but Emily was lying on the sofa and hadn't prepared dinner. "Sorry, I got ready meals for today," she said apologetically, but my frustration didn't ease. "I'm busy too, you know, but if we don't do what we need to, we can't keep our life together. Let's try to do our part, all right?" Even though I said that, Emily only replied with "I'm sorry," and after that, she hardly ever prepared meals anymore. I started to feel increasingly irritated with Emily. Since my job got busier, I'd come home, eat, take a bath, and go straight to bed, resulting in minimal conversation, but by then, I hardly wanted to speak to her at all. "Welcome back. Listen, Emily," perhaps trying to reconcile, kept trying to talk to me, but I kept avoiding her by saying I'm tired. 2 months passed like this. It was ridiculous, living together as a couple yet avoiding each other. Looking back, I realized that maybe I was venting my work stress on Emily. That's why I felt I deserved the punishment that came. On a rainy day in summer, when I got home around 11 p.m., Emily was nowhere to be found. I wondered if she hadn't returned from work yet. With that thought, I didn't bother to look for Emily and simply collapsed into bed to sleep. It wasn't until the next morning that I noticed something was off. It was when the sunlight lit up the room. The room seemed unusually tidy. Curious, I opened the closet and found that all of Emily's clothes were gone. Checking other drawers, I saw that her makeup and other personal items were also completely removed. I went to the living room to check for a note, but there was nothing. Had she left because she was fed up with our constant arguing? Thinking this, I called Emily's cell phone. However, all I heard was a cold, automated voice saying, "This phone number is currently not in use." And just like that, my wife, Emily, had suddenly disappeared. I deeply regretted my recent behavior. Since I too had occasionally shirked my share of the chores due to being busy, I should have been understanding and said, "It happens to the best of us." I should have embraced Emily's attempts at reconciliation instead of pushing her away. I should have faced our issues together. It's true, you often only realize these things once you've lost them. But still, I thought, maybe she's just angry and will come back someday. When she does, I'll apologize properly. I was still naive at that point. A month passed since Emily disappeared. My busy work schedule finally slowed down, and I had more idle time than usual. This situation led to me spending more time than ever thinking about Emily, and I was haunted by the anxiety that she might not return. Then, in my mailbox, I found an envelope without a name on it. Since there was no stamp, it was clear that it had been delivered directly. After I got home, I opened the envelope to find something shocking inside. A divorce petition. For a moment, I thought it might be some kind of prank, but there was already Emily's signature on one side. It was unmistakably Emily's handwriting. I searched the envelope for anything else, but there was nothing. Why? How could this happen? My behavior had hurt Emily so much that she wanted a divorce. But I wished she had at least told me face to face. The idea that everything would end without any real communication, just with a single piece of paper, was unbearably frustrating. I had only visited Emily's family home once, far away, and didn't even remember the address or phone number. Seeing how the letter was delivered directly, without any chance of tracking through a postmark, it was clear that Emily didn't want to see me. The thought that I had driven away someone I once loved so deeply was incredibly painful. But there was no way to persuade her anymore. For months, I couldn't bring myself to sign the divorce papers, but when Emily didn't return even on our 5th wedding anniversary, I finally accepted her decision. I signed and submitted the divorce petition. I never thought that I would be back at this place where we had once happily submitted our marriage registration, only 5 years later. Tears naturally fell from my eyes. 3 years have passed since then. I still hadn't been able to give up on seeing Emily again, and have told mutual friends to let me know if they hear anything about her. I even visited her hometown in Nebraska, but still couldn't find where she was. During this time, I heard from a friend living in California that they had seen Emily. I thought she might not want to see my face anymore. I thought about it, but I knew I couldn't move on without seeing her and hearing her true feelings. And I desperately wanted the chance to apologize. If I became a burden, I decided I would leave immediately. With that in mind, I headed to California. Of course, it wasn't easy to find someone in a crowded city like California. I spent a whole day wandering around the station where my friend's friend had seen her. It feels like I'm stalking her. Just as I was coming to my senses, wondering if I should go back, feeling disheartened, a familiar face passed by right in front of me. She didn't seem to notice me, but it was definitely Emily. There was no mistaking it. Seeing Emily for the first time in 3 years, I almost broke down in tears, but I restrained myself, given the crowd. Emily seemed to be looking around for someone, and then her face lit up with joy. She found her mother and a little boy who ran up to her, exclaiming, "Mommy." The boy, hugging Emily, said cheerfully, "Grandma bought me a toy." "That's great. Did you say thank you?" Emily asked the boy with a gentle, maternal smile I hadn't seen before, lifting him up in her arms. Emily. Had she remarried? All this time, I had clung to the selfish hope of meeting her again, apologizing, and perhaps starting over. I had never imagined that Emily could have remarried and started a new life. Realizing this, I knew there was no point in meeting her. Why disturb her happiness by bringing up painful memories? There was no place for me in her life anymore. I remembered living with Emily but couldn't recall the last time I saw her smile like that. If she looked so happy now, I had to be glad for her. But part of me wished I had been the one to make her smile like that. No matter how much I regretted my past mistakes, I couldn't turn back time. As tears threatened to spill, I turned away from Emily and her family, heading toward the station restroom. That's when. "May I have a moment with you?" When I was called from behind and turned around, there stood Emily's mother. There was no sign of Emily or the little boy next to her, leaving me with a mix of relief and disappointment. "You are Nate, right?" she asked, recognizing me. "It's been a while," I replied. Emily's mother suggested we talk at a nearby cafe. As soon as we sat down, she apologized. "I'm sorry for what my daughter did 3 years ago." "No, I'm the one who should apologize for making Emily suffer," I said. I had so many questions. Why did Emily leave without a word? How is she living now? Was that boy really her child? But it felt intrusive to ask. Then Emily's mother asked, "Why are you here today?" But I couldn't immediately answer her question. I was worried that it might seem strange, even creepy, that I had come all the way to California to seek out Emily after we had separated 3 years ago. Yet, if I really wanted to see Emily, should I be honest about it? Once again, I found myself in a dilemma. Then, Emily's mother gently asked, "Did you come to see Emily?" Finally, I admitted, yes, I wanted to talk to her again, to apologize. Then, Emily's mother said something surprising. "Please, meet with Emily." Really, I thought for sure I would be rejected, thinking she had moved on to a new path in life. "But you need to do this, so you can both move forward," she said. Those words brought me both happiness and a twinge of pain. It felt as though she was saying she wanted her daughter to settle the past and find happiness in her new life. Eventually, Emily's mother said she would talk to Emily, and we arranged to meet at this cafe the next day at 2 p.m. I was happy to see Emily, whom I had longed to meet, but the thought that this might be the last time made me feel somewhat sad. The next day, as I waited at the promised place, Emily arrived. "It's been a while," she said, sitting down without looking at me. Maybe she really didn't want to see me. I knew that much since the moment she initiated the divorce. Determined not to have regrets, I decided to express my feelings. "Thank you for coming today. Since the divorce, no, since you left, I've been full of regret. I was so wrapped up in my own pain. I never tried to understand your feelings. I think that only made things harder for you. I'm truly, truly sorry. I've wanted to apologize for so long." I apologized to her. Wait, look at me. I'm the one who should apologize for leaving silently. I didn't have the courage to confront the situation. Emily then shared her feelings from that time. We both became busy with work, and I knew we were drifting apart. I was probably just as self-absorbed. I had expected Emily to be more angry, so her calm demeanor surprised me. But that meant this was all in the past for her. In Emily's mind, it was a closed chapter. I realized that I was the only one who saw great significance in this reunion. As I thought this, back then, I was feeling unwell. This was news to me. I mentioned it a few times, but you seemed so busy. You probably don't remember. True to her words, I didn't recall it all. So, I couldn't prepare meals properly, and I just felt so down, thinking you were fed up with me. Hearing this, I remembered how Emily often lay down, unable to cook meals every day. "I'm sorry for not noticing. Are you okay now? Was it an illness?" Caught up in my own work stress, I hadn't even noticed Emily's health issues. I was the worst husband. That's why she divorced me. It wasn't an illness, I was pregnant. It took a while for my brain to process her words. What? That was all I could muster, sounding foolishly surprised. "It was your child," Emily said, tears welling up in her eyes. Really? Still shocked, I watched as Emily, tearfully, continued her story. "When I felt something was wrong, I went to the hospital and found out I was pregnant. I was so happy. I thought maybe this could bring us back to how we used to be, that this child could be the angel to reconnect us. I wanted to tell you as soon as possible and tried many times, but we never seemed to have a moment to talk properly. It felt like all the puzzle pieces were falling into place." Emily's ill health and her attempts to talk to me were all because she was pregnant with my child. Then I started feeling very alone. I wondered if you would be happy about the child, if I could be a good mother. I got scared of everything and talked to my mom. Initially, I didn't intend to leave. I just planned to stay at my parents' house for a few days. But I became too afraid to talk things out with you. I ran away. I'm so sorry for keeping silent about something so important all this time. Emily apologized again. "And the child?" I asked nervously. "It's a boy. He's 3 now and growing up healthy, she replied. Was he the one with you at the station yesterday? I think my voice was trembling. Yes, that's right, Emily replied. Upon hearing her words, tears uncontrollably started flowing from my eyes. The image of that child, who had clung to Emily calling her mommy, was still vivid in my mind. That was my child. Before I knew it, I was holding Emily's hand. And without being able to hold back, I said, "Thank you." Hearing that, Emily also started crying. I'm sorry for not realizing the pain you went through for our child and for behaving terribly. I was selfish, truly sorry. But I've always wanted to tell you this. If possible, if you can forgive me, I want to live with you again. I want to be the father of our child. Can you give me another chance? The wait for Emily's response felt incredibly long. But then, Emily squeezed my hand back and said, "That's my line. Thank you." Afterward, Emily took me to her cart home. Our son, Isaac, didn't act shy at all despite meeting me for the first time. "Dad, did you come from far away?" he asked, hugging me happily. Apparently, Emily had explained to Isaac, who had started to question why he didn't have a father like other families at kindergarten, that Dad is away on a long trip. Isaac even said, "Mom told me, Dad is kind and funny." Knowing that Emily and Isaac had kept my presence alive in their lives made me incredibly happy. Later, I returned to the headquarters and arranged to transfer to the California branch starting next spring. Until then, I would visit them by plane on weekends, but considering the 3 years we missed, it felt like a short wait. Soon, I believe, living a life with Emily and Isaac will feel normal again. But I will never forget that such an ordinary life is not something to take for granted. Having once fallen apart, I believe we are now bound by a stronger bond, and I start walking with my family again. I'd like to order lunch for the next 10 years, is that possible? On the brink of closing, my family's diner was in a tough spot. The one who placed the order was a woman as beautiful as a model. Faced with this unexpected order, both my parents and I were stunned. Then, the woman who ordered started chuckling at the sight of us. Is 10 years too short? How about 30 years? Seeing her mischievously smiling, I was reminded of an old friend. My name is Michael. This year, I'll turn 29. Currently, I work at my family's diner, run by my dad, mom, and me, a family of 3. We're not rich, but we're happy. Our diner is a local eatery, frequented occasionally by my high school classmates. I grew up in this neighborhood. I attended a local public high school. I wasn't particularly bright, but I spent 3 fulfilling years having fun with my classmates. There was a girl I was interested in. Her name was Emily, and we were in the same class for 3 years. She was slim and pretty, like a model. On the other hand, I wasn't much of a looker. I didn't have enough confidence to pursue someone out of my league. What concerned me was her pale complexion. Emily was popular with the boys. She was respected by the girls, but no one seemed to notice her pallor. But I couldn't bring myself to mention it. In that way, I couldn't take my eyes off her. In high school, we brought our own lunch. My mom always nagged me to eat 3 meals a day, no matter what. Being from a diner family, my lunch was always hearty. It was enough to satisfy any growing boy. However, Emily always skipped lunch. One day, I asked one of her close friends about it. Why doesn't Emily eat her lunch? I somehow felt uneasy asking her directly. Oh, Emily is on diet. She only eats 2 meals a day. It's amazing how thin she is, Emily's friend told me. Why do girls want to be so thin? I couldn't understand. Well, I guess that's just how it is. I was concerned, but that's where I left it. Then, one day something happened. Emily's friend was absent. The friend I usually eat lunch with was called away for a club activity. Emily, as usual, was studying alone during lunchtime while others were spreading out their lunch. "Emily, is it okay if I sit here?" Curious, I took the seat in front of her. The class was noisy, and no one paid any mind to us. Oh, yeah," Emily replied. "Aren't you eating lunch? I heard you were on diet." As I said that, I opened my own lunch. "Yes, that's right. But take care not to ruin your health. Everyone says you're slim and praises you, but you look pale." When I said that, Emily stopped what she was doing. Her smile from earlier was gone. Her face was tense, and I froze, wondering if I had said something wrong. No, but I do think you're beautiful. What I meant wasn't that you're unattractive or anything. Sorry, that was a poor choice of words. I really didn't mean any harm. Being on diet is important too." I apologized her. I realized I had been rude to her. After hearing that, Emily's expression softened a bit. "No, it's okay. You were just worried, right?" At her smile, I hesitated and then took out sandwiches wrapped in plastic that I had brought separately from my lunch. "Yeah, I'm worried. So, this is me being meddlesome. Throw it away if it's a bother." I placed the sandwiches on Emily's desk. "No, but really, don't throw it away. It's really good. Try it." I said that and started eating my lunch. "Did you know my family runs a diner?" "A diner?" "Yeah, the Harrison's Diner, near the station. I'm the son of the diner owners. That's why it's good." As I said that, Emily hesitantly reached for the sandwiches. She took a small bite. For some reason, I felt relieved watching her. As I continued eating my lunch, I heard a sniffle. "Emily," when I asked, Emily, with tears in her eyes, muttered, "It's delicious." My heart tightened. I had a feeling that something was up. "If it's okay with you, I can be someone to talk to. There must be things you can tell your friends, right?" At my words, Emily started to speak little by little. "I have a younger brother and sister. They're still little." I listened quietly to her story. "But my father passed away 3 years ago, and now my mom is supporting us all by herself. So, I do the housework and take care of my siblings. Even dropping them off and picking them up from daycare. I also cook the meals." Emily carefully took small bites of the sandwiches I gave her. Tears fell onto the sandwiches. "So, we don't have much money. I can't work because I have to take care of my brother and sister. But even in such a situation, my mom let me continue my studies, so I feel like I have to endure everything." Wiping her tears, Emily said that with a smile. "My dinner is usually leftovers from my brother and sister, and I hardly have time for breakfast, but I have to keep going." After listening quietly, I spoke up. "Come and eat at our place. Bring your brother and sister too." "Thank you, but I can't afford it, and just your thought is enough." Emily, envied by everyone. Thinking she was on diet, what was she really feeling? I had no idea about her situation and carelessly commented on her pale complexion. I never imagined she had such circumstances. I never thought about the happiness of being able to have 3 meals a day. So maybe you're saying that I look pale wasn't completely wrong, but it's for reasons like that, so don't worry about it. Thanks for worrying about me. You're the only one who noticed, Michael. It surprised me," Emily said, smiling. I couldn't smile. "Don't worry about it, that's impossible, of course." After hearing about her situation, I racked my brain, though not the brightest, wondering what I could do. But there's not much someone like me can actually do. So, I simply thought of helping her. "Emily, here you go." The next day, when lunchtime came, I approached Emily and placed a sandwich on her desk. As expected, Emily looked surprised. "Michael, didn't I say Emily doesn't eat lunch?" one of Emily's friends asked me. "Yeah, but I want to give it, so it's okay." Emily stared at the sandwich on the desk. "It's from Harrison's Diner, their special club sandwich. Be grateful and eat, Emily. You're a bit too thin." Then, saying that, I returned to my seat. Is it okay? Was it unnatural? Emily talked with her friend for a bit and then said to me, "Thank you, I'll eat it gratefully." She smiled brightly, and I felt a deep relief. Since then, I continued to give Emily a sandwich every day. Soon, everyone in the class knew about it. "Hey, Michael, you like Emily, don't you?" One day, one of my classmates said that to me. It was when I was giving a sandwich to Emily. "What? No." Emily, concerned about me, tried to refute it. She probably understood why I was giving her the sandwiches. But I didn't want her circumstances to be known. Is it a problem? The whole class buzzed at my words. "You're silly, right? If you're trying to impress Emily, there are better things than carbs every day. If you really liked her, you wouldn't do that." The classmate mocked and ridiculed me. But I retorted, "I'm the son of the Harrison Diner. I'm just giving her the sandwiches I think are most valuable." At that, the classmate tried to mock me again, but Emily's friend countered with a solid argument. "It's none of your business, right?" Thanks to that, no one else said anything to me. Emily kept saying, "I feel guilty, and that's enough." But I said, "If you don't eat it, just throw it away," and continued giving her sandwiches until graduation. I thought doing anything more would surely burden Emily, so that was all I felt I could do. Until graduation, no one discovered Emily's family situation. I sometimes worried that my actions were a nuisance, but on graduation day, her words to me, "I will never forget your kindness," meant everything. Afterward, I went to culinary school. I got my chef's license and started my journey as a cook, aiming to protect our precious family diner, Harrison Diner. After graduating, I got a job at a traditional American restaurant. There, I learned the basics of American cuisine. I could have joined a family business right away, but my dad was still active. Mom was also working hard alongside Dad. It didn't seem like there was a role for me yet, and Dad's words, "Don't waste the chance to learn," allowed me to acquire skills I wouldn't have learned at home. After working at the restaurant for about 5 years, I returned home. At first, there were clashes with Dad over the differences between the traditional restaurant and our diner. I complained about how the stock was made or got scolded for changing the seasoning on my own. But fundamentally, whether it was the restaurant or our family diner, Dad, Mom, and I were the same. We all just wanted our customers to enjoy delicious food, that's all. This isn't a fancy restaurant. Customers come here for good food, not just fancy stock. I know your stock is tasty, but if it increases costs, we have to change our prices. We have our own way of doing things. Don't compare us to others. That's not why I told you to learn, Dad said. These words made me reflect deeply. Without realizing it, I had been comparing our diner to the restaurant. I was trying to change what was good about our place. "Sorry, I was wrong," I apologized. Dad silently accepted my apology. Seeing this, Mom just quietly smiled, looking pleased. From then on, I saw Dad as my master and learned cooking from him. Of course, my experience in the restaurant wasn't wasted. I learned to make dishes using stock ingredients and to add vegetable scraps to the stock, among other things. The stock has more depth now, Dad acknowledged. We became partners in protecting Harrison Diner. But those days didn't last long. Though we were in a prime location near the station, the competition was fierce. Just about 2 years ago, a fast food chain opened, and about a year ago, a family-style restaurant. the arrival of these two competitors clearly dealt a major blow to our business. Office workers preferred the quick service of the family-style restaurant, and students liked the hearty meat and fried food of the fast food chain. To adapt, we introduced quick-serve pasta and started offering takeout, including fried food combos aimed at students. However, we couldn't compete with the chain stores that offered cheaper meals due to their bulk purchasing power. This diner, where I grew up since I was little. As I grew older, I worked alongside Dad, trying various strategies to keep it going. But the number of customers dwindled, and we had many days that felt like we were closed even when we were open. Our regulars and friends who occasionally visited would say, "Don't give up, and keep going," but it was hard to know what more we could do. That day, we had no customers at all. The diner was eerily quiet during lunchtime. "Maybe we should close the diner." I said that, and Dad responded, "Yeah, I think so. We've reached our limit." His voice, resigned and sad, echoed in my heart, and Mom just looked down. I felt like crying seeing the two of them like that. "Sorry, I know, you did your best, but sometimes things just end, no matter what." Dad patted my shoulder. He was probably more inclined to cry than I was. The silence was broken by the sound of the door opening. We instinctively looked up. "Hello," I said brightly, as if to blow away the heavy air from earlier. Even if we were closing, I wanted to cherish every customer until the very end. "Hello, how are you?" echoed Dad and Mom, also brightening up. The person who entered wasn't a regular. She was a slender, beautiful woman I didn't recognize. "Please, have a seat here," Mom offered. As she removed her sunglasses, the woman said, "No, I'm not here for a meal." Dad, Mom, and I froze at her words. Then, the woman looked at me and smiled. "I'd like to order lunch for the next 10 years, is that possible?" I blurted out, surprised. Both of my parents were equally stunned by this unexpected order. Then, the woman chuckled at our reaction. "Is 10 years too short? How about 30 years? She joked with a mischievous smile. That smile triggered a memory in me. Hee, it's been a while, Michael." It was her. I stepped forward. "Emily, is that you? Wow, it's been so long." Yes, the beautiful woman was Emily. The same classmate I used to give sandwiches to in high school. The unexpected reunion filled me with joy. "Mom, make some coffee. Come on, have a seat," I urged, but Emily laughed. "I'm not here for a meal. I wanted to order some lunch." I tilted my head in confusion. While Mom prepared the coffee, we sat facing each other at the table. "What do you mean? And what are you up to now? Are you doing well?" I asked, and Emily replied, "You didn't know. I'm kind of a celebrity now." A celebrity. Emily began her story about her life after graduating from high school. Apparently, she was introduced to a cooking class by a senior at the company where she worked as an office clerk. The class focused on nutritious and budget-friendly cooking. Being new, the class offered her a spot as a monitor. Concerned about her own pale complexion, which I had pointed out, and now constantly worrying about her siblings' health, Emily was drawn to the class's focus on nutritious and budget-friendly cooking. Emily began arranging the recipes she learned in her cooking class and sharing them on social media. Of course, she knew there were people who couldn't afford to attend cooking classes. So, she thought that by sharing her knowledge, she could help someone. Her teacher was pleased with the promotion and happily allowed her to continue. As a result, Emily's social media followers rapidly increased. This led to a book deal with a publisher, where she co-authored a recipe book with her cooking teacher. "Well, that's amazing," I said, smiling. I was genuinely happy for her. It seems like Emily's success is telling me that what I did was not a mistake. Well, it might be a bit of pride on my part. And now, I'm a YouTuber and a culinary researcher, doing my own broadcasts, she added. A YouTuber? I exclaimed, surprised, and Emily laughed. Is it that surprising? The idea of being a YouTuber often implies being quite famous. It made sense when Emily mentioned she was somewhat of a celebrity. She seemed like someone from a different world. That made her reason for being here even more puzzling. She must have sensed my confusion and explained. Emily said, "Actually, a girl from our class, who I was close with, told me that Harrison Diner was going through tough times. I wanted to see if there was anything I could do, so I came today." I see. Thank you, I said, expressing my gratitude. Emily then said, "I should be the one thanking you. You don't know how much you helped me back then. It wasn't just the sandwiches, but also your thoughtfulness and kindness." I looked up at her. "The person I am today is because of you, Michael. You pointed out my pale complexion and provided those sandwiches from here. So, for this diner, I'll order for 10 years, 20 years, however long it takes. Now it's my turn to help you." Tears welled up in my eyes. "Thank you," I managed to say, and she just smiled happily. "I'll deliver lunch every day," I promised. "Could you also make them for my brother and sister? They need lunch for school every day," she asked. Tears streamed down my face as I repeatedly nodded at her words. After that, Emily and I kept in regular contact. It wasn't just about the lunch. I didn't want to let this opportunity Emily gave me go to waste. Swallowing my pride, I asked Emily to teach me about cooking. I can't let pride waste an opportunity to learn, I thought. That was something Dad had told me after I graduated from culinary school. We started focusing on budget-friendly cooking to cut costs and creating nutritious meals to differentiate from other eateries. This approach attracted a younger clientele and, thanks to social media, brought in customers of all ages. Our diner regained its bustling atmosphere, and our business stabilized. Emily promoted Harrison Diner's secret recipes on her YouTube channel, which also brought us great publicity. We built a new friendship, supporting and being supported by each other. One day, while chatting, I said to Emily, "Hey, why don't you come and eat here with your brother and sister? You've been having our lunch, but you've never visited the diner, right? Your mom is welcome too." Emily was delighted by my invitation. Back in high school, I had once suggested, "Bring your brother and sister along." But at that time, Emily declined, saying she couldn't afford it. Of course, I never intended to charge her then or now. I just wanted to make her happy. On the day of closing, I opened the diner and cooked for the 4 of them. "What would you like to order?" I asked. They looked at each other and then said, "Some sandwiches, please." Sandwiches? I was taken aback. Sandwiches weren't on the menu. Although I used to boast about Harrison Diner's special sandwiches, those were just something Mom made. "I really wanted my mom, brother, and sister to taste your family's sandwiches," Emily said. To her, those sandwiches were something special. I smiled and served them a simple meal of sandwiches, soup, and salad. Watching them happily savoring the food was incredibly fulfilling. Afterward, Emily's brother and sister left with their mother for their evening classes. They thanked me, looking happy, which I appreciated greatly. Left alone, Emily offered to help with the dishes, but I declined. It was my job, after all. "It was really delicious. Thank you for making it again," she said. Well, back then, it was either Mom or me who made them, but actually, it was mostly Mom, I confessed. I knew it. There were times when they were a bit different, she laughed. "Really? Sorry, that must have been me." As I hurriedly apologized, Emily shook her head, laughing. No, I was happy, and even when they teased you about liking me, you sacrificed yourself to make it easier for me, when in fact, I was the one who liked you. Really? I was stunned as Emily blushed slightly. I looked at her, flustered, as she continued. I want to be there for you, Michael, to support you. I nodded at her words and said, and I want to be someone who can help you whenever you need it. Eventually, Emily and I went from being friends to lovers and got married. Years later, Harrison Diner and Emily's YouTube channel are still very popular. Emily has gained a little weight. She seems self-conscious about it, but when I tell her, "You're the most beautiful now," she smiles happily.